The bad part is that when we're doing this, I like to catch people off guard when I hit start on the record, and Skip is caught on.
Yeah, I have. Get ready. You got me like a couple of times.
That's why I like having a new person on the podcast. Like I'm gonna hit record, and I randomly hit record, and like they're in the middle of saying something, and I try to cut in when it's funny or something. But today we're talking about physical presence, which is an odd conversation considering that Skip and I have never been in the same room together.
That is still one of the weirdest things. We've been working together since 2018.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you've met my wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the irony of it.
It
My
is
wife
so
is
crazy.
everybody's a big happy family. So in November, that'll be the first time Skip, Sebastian, and I are in the same room together, which isn't as weird for Sebastian because he just came on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'd worked with Danish for 3 years before I went and visited him.
All right.
It's like, how do I know which one you are? Just look for the giant.
Well, and that was the funny part about it. I'd worked for you, with you, and then for you, for probably close to a couple of years before something came up, and I, realized how tall you were. Of course, obviously on video, nobody really looks any taller than anyone else, and so.
Yeah, so for people who don't know me, like I am 6'6" and 290 pounds. I was an all-American athlete in college. So when people meet me in person for the first time, they're like, whoa.
Yeah. Where did that come from?
Yeah, the intimidation factors there. There's a funny story I tell about when I started working in IT. It was like 2002 when I got my first full-time job. I've been working part-time here and there before then, because in college, high school. And this lady who I'd been on support with, it's like you develop kind of camaraderie. So back then there was a lot of phone support, and I pick up the phone, and she did this software that was fantastic. It was really great at dictation, and it helped out a lot of the police officers getting their reports done. But it had its issues. I mean, back then there was a lot of registry hacking going on, and I don't know if it's the same way today. But back then, it was. There was, we were just starting to see things like Deja and Google become mainstream. So a lot of it was just figuring things out. So I had like these memos on what to do when certain things happen. So we spent a lot of time on the phone. Like years went by, and then finally, I got out to their site because we're Nebraska, right? We're not a small state, and compared to Texas, we're small. We're still big, though.
Okay.
It's an 8-hour drive across Nebraska. So I'm supporting all these sites across Nebraska. And I walk into Grand Island for the first time. And I'm sitting there tying my shoe. And because I wanted to say, come say hi to her because we spent so many hours on the phone. I'm sitting there tying my shoe, and we're in you're in a police facility. And she's like, can I help you? And, this giant standing there tying his shoes. I'm like, Rebecca, we've had all these hours on the phone together. And she's just, oh, Adam. It's just like, that power of that physical presence, and trying to like make that connection, like immediately was like, oh, once you heard my voice, you knew that who it was. And in IT, we tend to like be a bit of recluses. And
we are.
So we like, how can I avoid seeing a customer?
Yes.
I like my desk. I want my coffee. I want my screens. How do I stay here?
Oh,
and I don't realize there's an importance to being physically present with your client and with people.
There is. And I think, you mentioned something, your screens and your desk, it's your space. And for techie guys, I think, we've got our tools, our shortcuts, just everything is set up. And I noticed this when I go remote from this office to somewhere else, and I'm operating on my laptop. And my laptop's set. It's got everything I need on it. I'm, always really prepared about that. But if I want to do serious work, I want to make sure I come back to my desk. If I've got a lot to do, because it's my place. It's where I get stuff done. And I think we do tend to want to sit at our desks because it's where we can accomplish the most. But we're kind of maybe missing the objective there a little bit. And when we're getting out and being present with people, we can get a lot done there as well. We've just got to change our perspective on what we're trying to get done. And no, we're not closing tickets or, completing whatever task, that is technical in nature. Our to-do items are to connect with people, to be real with them and help them, connect with us, because that relationship is really important. And in the world today, video really does help. I enjoy the opportunity to get on with everyone and do the video calls, but there is an element that is kind of missing in some of the side conversations and just I don't know, all the nuances of personal interaction that I think we've got to be careful, or we're going to miss out on some really important connections that we need to make with our clients. And an important one is our coworkers as well.
Coworkers, we don't even talk to them. So the idea of being physically present, I hear it from like the old fuddy-duddies, like, oh, we don't talk to people anymore. And if I always quote, when people start getting the get off my lawn feel to me, I always quote Mark Twain, who's like the king of cranky old men. And
I like Mark.
He talks a lot about how people hide behind their newspapers and they won't talk to each other anymore. We'll all be in the lounge and smoking cigars and stuff, and everybody's got their newspapers up. No one wants to talk anymore, but you're still physically present. And I think it was in Sherlock Holmes, Mycroft loved to go to this club, and the whole purpose of the club was you weren't allowed to talk to somebody. And it was for this certain niche of gentlemen in the UK who wanted to be at a club and around other people without talking to them.
There we go.
And I'm like, I know people like that. You're in IT.
Yeah.
And so it's like, there's this old feel like we like to be around people, but at the same time we don't. And we find ways as people. We find people, the support people just started tapping me on Zencastr. A mid-session. So speaking of physically present, like, oh, hey, let me go ahead and respond to you while you're talking. Like, hey, we're virtual. The good thing about virtual is you can see when two people are in a conversation.
Yes. Yep.
And so I was trying to get Zencastr to work earlier, and that's what we record our podcasts in. And I was like, crap, everything was blank. I couldn't get Chrome to launch. And so I opened up the chat panel like, hey, I can't get my Zencastr to launch. And, they wait. And then all of a sudden I finally get everything fixed. I'm an IT guy. I can fix this stuff, right? And all of a sudden, like, start getting virtual messages from this chat support. I'm like, now be quiet.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I see you're in session. Like, then don't text me. Virtual sessions, you can see, like, I can look down if I'm like, oh, I need to reach out to Skip. Oh, his light's red. He's in session with a client. No big deal. Now, in a physical presence situation, you're walking through the office, you got your coffee in hand, you open the door, and you're like, whoops, sorry. Until you see the people, it's hard. But we have these ways of telling in virtually and trying to replicate the physical environment. Like, is somebody engaged in a conversation? Can you butt in? Should you not butt in? Should you wait for a little while? When's their calendar going to be open? And so there is advantages to the virtual situation, but at the same time, like, if you see Skip is like, hey, he's over in the conference room, he's talking to this client. Hey, I'm going to poke my head in the door because I got a good relationship with that client.
Absolutely.
And I can say, hey, how's it going? You can do those flybys.
Those are really good. And I think oh yeah, the flybys can really be a little distracting too. But so I know I've probably told this story on our podcast before, but it was really important learning lesson for me. So I'll tell it again. I was back in my corporate days working for an oil and gas company, this huge facility in Wyoming. I roll up there. I get to fly on the company plane. That was really cool. Oh, I love those days. Anyway, so I go to Wyoming. I roll in. I've got a million things to do. I've planned it all out. I've got all my stuff. It's late night upgrades. I'm not going to impact their activities. I've scheduled stuff. I've done it all right. I do the technical work. My upgrades are a success. Performance is better. I mean, it ticks all the boxes for success. And so I come back to the corporate office or our divisional office, my kind of quasi corporate headquarters. And, Monday morning, I'm all happy and sitting there and starting on the next stuff. And my boss comes in and says, he closes the door. All right.
Oh,
And so,
no.
yeah, it's one of those conversations and goes, we need to have a talk about your visit to Wyoming last week. And I'm like, what in the world? And it ultimately here's the really struggling thing, or the really hard thing I think IT guys struggle with: perception. And my visit to Wyoming in general got perceived as a failure, even though technically I did everything I set out to do. It all worked. But I get back and the failure is I didn't engage very well. I engaged a little bit, but I didn't engage very well with the team that was there. I didn't stop in and talk to the plant supervisor. There is a field supervisor out there that I didn't talk to. I went in, I talked to the point of contact there is kind of the office manager. I was coordinate with her, got my stuff done, in and out. And there was a whole swath of people that I really should have just said hi. I was putting a physical face to the voice, like you're talking about. And so our office out there in Midland, Texas, was responsible for supporting all these guys. So they're calling us all the time. But putting a face behind the voice, even though I wasn't necessarily the voice all the time, because I didn't do a lot of the end user support, but putting a face behind the voice is so, so powerful. And, I learned my lesson. And so every visit after that, I made sure I made the rounds. Your comment about taking people donuts, that was always a thing. Donuts and coffee and whatever we could do just to make those little connections, and it drastically changes the relationship. So even if you're a technical guy and it might not be your strong suit, it's okay. People know you're nerdy. They may even know that you're a bit awkward. They don't mind that. They like you anyway. Just go say hi. It really, really helps out with those engagements.
Yeah. And there's a trust level that you get by having that physical presence. Like I worked in an office where all of our management was 500 miles away, all of it. And you lose connection. You dehumanize a portion of your staff when there's not a connection there. And so like it got to the point where like I've told the story many times, like I was being pushed way too hard because I had 3 separate managers asking things of me and none of them could see how exhausted I was, and that's breaking me. I didn't see it myself.
Jobs.
I was too exhausted. It's like that whole Office Space report, like, oh, I have 3 bosses. And it burned me out, and it ruined me as an engineer. I'll never go back to engineering because of that particular situation. But, here I am like 12 years later, and I'm like, the whole reason behind that was there was no physical presence of management. They couldn't see that they had an exhausted employee. There was a good 30 engineers at this site. I just happened to be the tier 3 top support. And so when they wanted somebody to come in, like, oh, call Adam, have him do it. And I get the job done, but then I started getting worse and worse and worse at my job. And because there's no one physically to stand up for me and say, man, that guy is getting burnt out.
Yeah.
And they knew all the people at the other site, and like, they're doing a great job. They see, oh, this person's having a hard time in life. And like, we need to offload some of their duties onto something. Oh, let's go get at them. And, I'm sitting here just breaking, like I'm starting to mess up projects. I'm starting to like get really cranky with client requests, like just absolutely like losing it. But there was no one physically present to say, man, this is not Adam. Adam's not doing well.
Yeah.
And those mannerisms you see physically, and like, you know what? Are you okay, man? And no one able to vouch. And so then over time, people saw like these incompetent people at one site, and they see these fully functional, empathetic people at the other site.
Hmm.
And I think the top level, after I left, looked down and said, "Whoa, we've got a massive disparity." And the funny thing was, the headquarters of the entire organization was at my site, but the
Okay.
IT headquarters
Yes.
was like 500 miles away.
Yep.
I think they balanced it after like this top tier engineer got let go, and they could not figure out why. And then when they looked down and saw the mess that had happened, like, oh, and now I know there's a balance across both sites now. And I think that's because physical presence matters.
You,
You gotta have
you
that
don't. Yeah.
ability to read somebody.
I think in some aspects in the MSP community, big focus for us, obviously, we try to build this ambiguous presence, right? So we have lots of documentation, we got lots of processes and tools, and we want the ability for our clients to call us and say. So we want the ability for our clients to call us and anybody be able to pick up the phone,
Yeah.
anybody be able to say, "Hey, I need help on this," and our team just respond. So I mean that's leveraging our staff and our team so that we can all really step up and provide the best support for our customers. But when it becomes so ambiguous that they don't see a person and they just see a company, you're really starting to lose something. So old man here, yet another story. But
Old
this
man
one's pretty, yeah, here, this one's pretty recent. So, one of my little serial entrepreneur stints here recently was doing some retail work, and I sourced a manufacturer for this particular product. And so I'm having it made. It's custom and it's a lot of back and forth. I need this, I need that. There's some specs, some things I'm really open on. Anyway, it's a lot of back and forth with my manufacturer there, and I'm doing it all through chat. All right, we've got a significant language barrier, so we're not even going to try, some sort of video or phone call. It's all through chat, and I work with them. We get a batch in. It's okay. We're good, and I go through a couple of cycles this, but somewhere along the way, I really have this question. It's like, am I still talking to the same person? And I fully believe that they had a account set up to do all of this, and they swapped out some employees, and I got a completely different person halfway through my process. And so I really have no connection. I can't say, hey, the way it was last time, because last time means they're going to have to dig through old messages to figure that out. I mean, there was just no back and forth, and it became a real barrier to success there. And ultimately, it was one of the reasons why I changed a lot of stuff up. And here's another thing too. I was constantly looking for another vendor. All right. I didn't have the trust level, even though I was getting the product I needed. I was getting the price I needed. I wasn't set on these folks. I wasn't saying, hey, they're my go-to group. I am every spare chance or every idea or something that pops up. I'm like, ooh, they got a slightly better price, or ooh, I like that a little bit better. Maybe I should switch. And you really don't want your customers thinking that constantly. All right.
Mhm.
You want that connection so that as those ads or those, random engagements come up, your customers are going, nah, I'm good. Adam's my guy. I know I can count on him, and I'm not interested. That's
Yeah,
the kind of
and when you
connection
mess
you want.
up, there's empathy there. Like,
Yes. Yes.
in the situation I give with like the office, like where I was the management was just disassociated with us. There was no empathy. And so, when I would mess up, it's like, well, why is Adam messing up? Like maybe we should
Yeah.
talk to him about this. Maybe things aren't okay because the empathy is not there because I wasn't present
Yes.
in their office, and they don't see and have those cups of coffee with us. And in a virtual office, we do the stand-ups every morning, and they're not like office stand-ups. I try to keep them loose, and this is our touch base. This is how we get to know each other. It's how we build relationships. And in offices, you have these things where like you swing by and somebody's on a rant about the latest, D&D session they were in, or their favorite sport
somebody like
team,
you.
or their taekwondo studio as having issues, and you hear these, and that makes people more human. And so that physical presence works. And so, a lot of people have been telling me like I need to be more physically present at conferences, and that Skip and I need to get to more of these conferences. I'm like, oh, you're not the first person who said this, and I get it. And I thought, let's have a conversation about how physically present we can be. And because we do need to build those relationships. I'm online, and I finally have gotten invited into several of the MSP groups. I used to be really big into technical support and helping build relationships online via some of the old Spiceworks forums and things like that. And it's been kind of refreshing being back in these groups and seeing these people again.
Yep.
Rather than seeing clients, I see the people again, and it's refreshing. And I'm looking forward to building those relationships back up, where I'm empathizing with these people and their struggles. And when they're when they're making the jokes about MacBook versus Windows, and they're making jokes about this and that, or they're frustrated with this client they have. And it's building empathy for me as well. Like, oh man, yeah, this is the world I used to be in, and now I get to see it again. I'm back on the ground.
But just the empathy in general. So again, back to my vendor that I was working with, when they made a mistake, I didn't have much patience for their mistakes, because it was that relationship wasn't there. It was very transactional. Hey, you didn't do this right. I spelled it out, can point it down. You need to make it right. You need to go back. You need to do this. And my tolerance for anything there, and it wasn't overly complicated, but I do understand that there were challenges there, but I wasn't really willing to give them much grace. And in technology, we can do great jobs. We can have incredibly smart people. We can hit our metrics, but things are still going to go wrong. Something is still going to happen. Business and technology together, each one's complex, but together is just a way too complicated environment for us to expect everything is going to go perfect every time. And when those downtimes happen, I think lots of times we think, what's our response? Okay, we're going to make it better because we're going to respond in a fantastic way. And that's absolutely right. But it's not just your response to something going wrong. It needs to be your client's response. And is your clients going to give you some grace? Are they going to say, hey, you guys have done a great job for us. I understand this is, one of those things that happen. You guys are making it up. No worries. Or is your failure going to be perceived as this is awful. I got to find someone else, because there's no relationship. There's no grace that can be provided in that, because, and it doesn't always have to be, it's not like you have to show up daily or even weekly. You just need to have some intentional connections with your clients whenever you can in a personal way. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of challenges there.
As otherwise, you're going to get into a low bid game again. It's the little things, as we said in a previous podcast. And the idea is that if you show up on site and you have these little conversations, you have the small talk, or you have like you brought cookies one day. Mm. That is the little things that are going to propel you into being human, so that you're putting things into your client's bucket, being physically present. Like, they remember you. They like the way you talk. They enjoy your presence. They remember when you came and swapped out their mouse. So these are things that are going to build relationships. So I did, while we were sitting here talking, come up with there. Now,
there we go.
I'm physically.
Oh, I see it now. Yeah. There we go. There.
I was trying to line it up just right, so I put a photo here. So for those of you who are listening, you're not seeing that online. I have a picture of Andrea, Paula, and Skip, and then me.
Yeah, there we go.
And like
the virtual, there we go, the virtual presence. So and that was really great. And sitting down and chatting with Andrea, she had heard so much about us, and I had heard about her all through our engagements, but just that physical connection. It just kind of closes the loop on some stuff. It really provides some, I don't know. There's elements there that can only be, realized when you have a personal engagement. So they don't have to be often. I don't think we need to wear ourselves out getting back into the cars and driving and going everywhere. I don't think, I've done my road warrior days, and I'm not wishing that on anyone. But there do need to be times when we have to be intentional and make that personal presence.
Now, just for a joke for everyone, Andrea stands about here on me.
Yeah. All right. So
maybe a little higher. Maybe her head's like right about you. So I've got a solid 12 inches on Andrea.
Yeah.
So it's all good. But all you short people out there.
So in perspective there, maybe I won't have to look up too much.
What?
In perspective there, maybe I won't have to look up too much. So
yeah. As long as you clear 6 foot or close to 6 foot, it's not too bad.
Okay, I can get
that. But yeah, physically present. There's nuances to it, and yes, we are a 100% virtual office. We talk virtually, we hang out virtually, we build relationships virtually, but there is something different about a physical presence. And with your clients, with your team members, there's a reason why we all get together. And you got to keep doing this. And there are ways of mimicking it, but as IT people, I cannot express to you enough. Like, it's not about automation. Automation is a piece, and yes. you can have operational efficiency through automation, and that is great. But while you're making your operations more efficient, I'm going to be making tens of thousands of dollars building relationships with my customers.
Mm-hmm.
And I've watched a number of you boutique MSPs out there do this, where you have a smaller client base and you've got massive margins because your clients enjoy the relationship they have with you. And I've seen others of you out there who have massive operations, and you're like, oh man, if I could just get 2% more efficient, and by not sending this person out every time, they can handle 10 more customers and I can make this much more margin. That's great. But you're always going to be a low bid game then.
Yeah.
Because there's no relationship. Why would they go with you over a competitor? I mean, why? When a competitor is charging $2 a PC less? Because there's no relationship to break. The cost of switching is just me going to them. Now, if they understand Bob, and Bob's on site, and Bob's the guy whose kid had cancer last year, or who really loves going to the Caribbean, that person is harder to break up with.
They are.
Even though the competitor is $2 a PC cheaper, you don't care because Bob's your guy. And I know like this working guy at our house, he built a relationship with us. Great guy. He's my kind of weird. And we always have new bug people come to our doorstep like, hey, we'll do it for cheaper than Orkin will. I'm like, yeah, but you're not Scott.
Yeah.
I know I'm paying another like $20 a month on top of what you would charge, but you're not Scott.
That's it.
Even though Scott is working for a big multinational company, I'm not doing business with the multinational. I'm doing business with Scott. And that's the important part. And like, oh no, well, what about switching? What if Scott leaves the company? I'm like, well, Scott leaves the company. Keep him happy.
Yeah.
Right now Scott has left, but it's more he's retired.
Yeah.
But I remember that relationship. And now it's on Orkin to build a relationship with me with the new person. That new person needs to build a relationship. And if they don't, it'll be next time someone gets knocked on my door and says, hey, I can go $20 cheaper. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I can do that.
Yep.
I'll talk to you guys anyways. Might as well save the money. So physical presence matters, people. Whether you're bringing donuts to the table or just saying hi in a bar or going to a conference and meeting some networking people will always trust somebody they've met in person more than they trust somebody they just know through email. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So we have some great things coming up here. As of the recording of this podcast, we can announce that we are the Pitch It finalists this year. So speaking of physical presence, we will be present at the IT Nation in November. and we will be on stage that Wednesday competing for a grand prize of $70,000. This was a very tough competition. This is something we paid our way through. It's not like one of those top 20 lists where,
I don't know.
hey, pay us $1,500 and we'll tell you you're one of the top 20. We earned our way to this stage.
We paid in a lot of time and effort.
A lot of time and effort. I was dreaming about all my efforts, like of editing and making Skip and Sebastian watch us over and over and over again, and nailing the pitch in a way that helped communicate our values to people across the screen. And now I get to do physically present in IT Nation. So if you're there on Wednesday, come to the stage and root us on or throw tomatoes, whatever you want. I don't care. I want to see you there.
There we go.
I want to shake hands with people that I've been talking to for years and see that Adam might or might not have good stage presence. Maybe I'm only good on camera.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we are a Pitch It finalist. We're looking forward to competing with our fellow Pitch It our two other Pitch It contestants, and we'll see everybody then.